Hello and welcome. This is Business Incorporated coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Chimeze Obi. Well, thank you for joining us. Coming up on the show, Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to lead delegations to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And staying off to sell shares in PSG Group just as South Africa's stock exchange plans to suspend trading in retailers' bonds over results delay. Plus, world's richest 1% get 82% of the wealth. That's according to Oxfam's Global Inequality Report. Now let's get started with the markets. And here on the African continent, Nigeria's stock market was looking green at intraday up 0.19%. The market in South Africa was also up 0.17%, but Egypt was trading low 0.30% at intraday. Nairobi closed up 0.94% on Friday. And in the Middle East, the stock markets were sluggish at intraday, with real estate developers weighing on Dubai because of continued concern about the impact of ample supply of new homes on the sector. The Dubai index lost 0.31% as Emma Properties dropped 0.8%, and Daya and Union Properties both fell 0.7%. In the last several days, the index has tested and failed to break resistance around 3,540 points, where the market bottomed last October, a negative short-term technical signal. Saudi Arabia's index edged up 0.06% after an early drop. Qatar's index was up 0.72%, and Abu Dhabi fell 0.15%. Moving now to the U.S., where the stock index futures fell into the red ahead of the open today as investors pondered what the government shutdown will mean for markets. Now, while concerns over the shutdown are set to linger, earnings are likely to sway some sentiment. Halliburton, Netflix, TD Ameritrade, and Brown & Brown are some of the names set to publish their latest financial figures. No major data or speeches by U.S. Federal Reserve members are set to take place today. And in Asia, markets closed mixed today as investors kept an eye on political developments in the U.S. after a government shutdown began last week. Japan's Nikkei 225 was little changed, closing higher by 0.03% at 23,816.33. Meanwhile, South Korea's Kospi declined 0.72% as index heavyweight Samsung Electronics fell 2.19% on the day. The Australian ASX 200 gave up gains seen earlier in the session to finish the session 0.23% lower. Greater China markets were in positive territory. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose 0.35%. On the mainland, the Shanghai Composite added 0.39%. and the Shenzhen Composite gained 1.16%. Well, Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo will be leading Nigeria's delegation to the 48th World Economic Forum annual meeting taking place from the 23rd to 26th of January in Davos, Switzerland. The Vice President is expected to head for Switzerland after attending the inauguration of President-elect of Liberia, George Weah, in Monrovia, Liberia. The theme of this year's edition of the WEF is creating a shared future in a fractured world, with emphasis on finding ways to reaffirm international cooperation on shared interest on matters such as the global economy, international security, and the environment. The Nigerian delegation at the World Economic Forum will include the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Udoma, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Oke Enelama, and the Special Advisor on Economic Matters to the President, Dr. Adeyemi Dikbeolu. And so, of what relevance would Nigeria's attendance in this year's Davos be? I'm being joined by the CEO of financial derivatives company, Bismarck Ruwane. Well, while we wait for Mr. Ruwane to give us his view on this year's World Economic Forum, now 4 out of every $5 of wealth generated in 2017 ended up in the pockets of the richest 1%, while the poorest half of humanity got nothing. Now, this is according to a report published by Oxfam today, just hours before world and business leaders meet at the 2018 World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Now, the inequality report says last year saw the biggest increase in billionaires in history, widening the gap between rich and poor even more.
The report says the increase in wealth for billionaires, about $762 billion over the year, is enough money to end extreme poverty across the world 7 times over. It adds that the top 1% have evaded an estimated $200 billion worth of tax, according to analysis by economist Gabriel Zucman.
Oxfam's inequality report this year reveals how our economies are rewarding wealth rather than the hard work of millions of people, ensuring that the few at the top get richer and richer, and the millions at the bottom are trapped in poverty wages.
The report, titled Reward Work, Not Health, says that tax avoidance and a lack of minimum wage are part of the problem, as well as a wearing down of workers' rights.
Developing countries lose $100 billion every year through tax dodging that is rooted through tax havens. That is money that should be paying for education of children, health, young people's jobs.
The charity says that billionaire U.S. President Donald Trump, who will be attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, is one of the culprits of fueling inequality.
President Trump came on a ticket of serving the ordinary person and rigging an economy that's not fair to ordinary people. But he immediately created a cabinet of billionaires who between themselves own more than what 100 million ordinary Americans own. That is how wealthy they are. And what is the first piece of legislation he comes out with? It is a legislation to give a tax cut to the super rich and big corporations. It allows them to dodge taxes on their foreign earnings, and it is paving the way for future cuts on programs that should be lifting people from poverty.
The charity is calling on leaders at Davos to crack down on tax avoidance, increase levels of taxation for the wealthy, and close the gender pay gap to create a more equal society.